The death toll rises from a dangerous ice storm that hit the Midwest, and it's making its way here to the capital region. Good evening, I'm Craig Smith. Jerry's off tonight. It may seem calm and clear outside, but it could be a much different picture when you wake up. Things could get messy. Meteorologist Mike Augustyniak's been tracking the storm headed our way and joins us now with first weather. Hey, Mike.
All right, Craig. Yeah, that's right. In fact, just as you wake up tomorrow morning, and if you do have to work, as you head into work, that's when we'll see the first of the wintry weather arrive. Here's the storm timeline for you. It's between 5 and 7 o'clock in the morning, especially around Albany, that we'll see that mixture of snow, sleet, and freezing rain develop south and southwest of Albany. It'll happen a couple of hours earlier, and then that ice will change to rain about as far north as Albany. But here in Albany, it will take most of the day to do so, and north of Albany, ice and snow will continue all day long. That icing is the thing I'm most concerned with. In fact, in the capital Saratoga region, as much as a ½ an inch to 3/4 of an inch is possible of that ice before that changeover to rain occurs, and that could certainly cause some widespread travel problems and may even cause a few localized power outages. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. The snow is going to be a concern for areas well north and east of Albany, like northern Warren County, northern Washington County, and up towards northern Rutland County. That's where the max snowfall totals will be anywhere from 6 to 10 inches. So in general, the winter storm warning outlines the area that I'm most concerned with. This winter storm warning up through midnight tomorrow night from about the capital Saratoga region, including Schoharie County and northern Berkshire County on north. North Country, Craig, under the gun for the heavy snow. We're under the gun for the heavy ice. Back with details on all of it in a few minutes.
Okay, we'll get ready for it. Thanks, Mike. State DOT workers have been at it all night. In Latham, the next shift takes over in about 90 minutes, and they'll be up through the night trying to keep the roads safe. Here's a 3-car crash on the Congress Street Bridge in Troy around 6:30. Police say all 3 drivers were going too fast for conditions. Some DOT workers were out patrolling the roads looking for spots that need salt. The roads should be less crowded than a typical Monday morning because schools and many businesses are closed tomorrow for the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday.
There'll be less traffic, but we still have to keep an eye on the roads. They still have to be kept clear.
But you'll have fewer drivers to compete with, right?
Yeah, right. There'll be less traffic.
And here's one example of an ice-related accident. A man who survived a car crash died a few minutes later when he fell from the Patroon Island Bridge on Route 90. Police say 22-year-old Peter DeAngelis of Nassau was a passenger in one of several cars that collided on the bridge today around 2 a.m. Police say when DeAngelis got out of the car to see if anyone was hurt, another car came sliding toward him. So he pulled himself up onto the bridge's safety rail and fell over it about 90 feet down onto some railroad tracks. Sleet, freezing rain, and icy roads are being blamed for at least 20 deaths in several states. In one case in Oklahoma, a minivan skidded off a slippery road, killing 7 people in the van and injuring 5 others. Tens of thousands of people from Texas to Illinois are without electricity. The storm system brought some Amtrak service to a halt, and it's also causing some airports to cancel flights. Some girls who've played basketball under a coach who's facing charges are jumping to his defense. Gregory Mora has been taken off the job and told to stay away from the team he'd been coaching in Cobleskill. State police arrested Mora. 2 girls claim he touched them the wrong way. As Michelle Marsh reports, the accused now is getting some support.
I could call him whenever I wanted to, and he made me love basketball.
These 5 teens are speaking out in support of assistant basketball coach Gregory Mora. Mora coached an all-girls basketball team in the Cobleskill Richmondville School District. He faces 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child after 2 students said he touched them inappropriately.
He has the morals that anyone would admire and aspire to, and he's just done so much for these girls.
This is home video of the girls and Coach Mora from 2003. Mora declined an interview, but Janet Santora talked to him over the phone and tells us what he said about the accusations.
He's overwhelmed by the support from the community, and it's very important to him that the girls that he's coached all these years not doubt him.
All of them say the physical nature of the sport makes touching unavoidable.
I definitely think someone took it the wrong way. He's very, he likes to, he has to touch someone to move. Like, when I'm a guard, and he had to teach me post moves. He had to touch me. He had to, teach me how to, that's the only way he could do it.
Personally, I haven't had one coach that hasn't, touched me in some way to try to help me figure out a drill.
I've spent hours with him in the gym, just working on my moves. I never once felt uncomfortable.
In Latham, Michelle Marsh, CBS 6 News.
Troy police say a level 2 sex offender who's not following the rules was spotted twice this weekend. They're still looking for him. Police say 49-year-old Donald Miller was seen in Saratoga County, once near the Wilton Mall and once at Stewart's in that area. Miller was convicted in 2 cases of child abuse. Police say he has not told authorities his latest address. His last known address was on Hill Street in Troy. If you've seen Miller, police would like to hear from you. Today, Governor Spitzer nominated Theodore Jones Jr. for the state's highest court. Jones is a Democrat who's now a state Supreme Court judge in New York City. He would succeed Albert Rosenblatt, who's retiring because last year he turned 70. That's the mandatory retirement age for members of the Court of Appeals. Tomorrow, the nation observes Martin Luther King Day. Today, a special service at the First United Methodist Church in Schenectady was one of several events held in honor of the civil rights leader. Assemblyman James Tedisco served as the keynote speaker.
The message today is remember what you could accomplish as one person, because remember what Dr. King accomplished, and now you're the disciples to lead the way when his life was cut short.
In the morning, the 22nd annual New York State Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Memorial Observance will take place in Albany. If you'd like to be there, the ceremony starts at 8 o'clock in the Convention Center at the Empire State Plaza. Stay with us. When we come back, meteorologist Mike Augustyniak will have your CBS 6 instant Doppler forecast. He'll have the latest on this winter storm coming our way. And since his life-saving dive onto the tracks of a New York City subway, he's become a household name. Now the man known as the subway hero is headed for the capital region. Plus, they lived near the Missouri home where 2 boys were held by their accused kidnapper. Straight ahead, neighbors describe the sounds that now seem to make some sense.
Your CBS 6 instant Doppler forecast with meteorologist Mike Augustyniak.
Temperatures this evening because they will play a big role in our next storm. In fact, it's pretty chilly with lots of low-level cold air draining down from the north through the day today, especially from about the Mid-Hudson Valley on north. Fish House now right at 32. Up in Fulton County, but Saratoga by the lake at 27. It's below freezing at Landgrove, 28 degrees there. 29 at Colony, Clarksburg, Mass at 31. Richmondville, 30 degrees. Then it does turn a little less chilly down towards Arkville and Catskill. Mid-30s there, mid-30s as well for Kingston down to LaGrange. So with the low-level cold air in place right now and not a lot to coax it out of here, I think these temperatures are going to stay pretty much steady coming up through the night tonight. And again, the areas that are below freezing will likely remain below freezing as we see the precipitation start coming up early tomorrow morning. Right now, though, it is dry. Live instant Doppler 6 showing you that. Nothing to talk about. All that rain, sleet, and snow that was in here earlier today has since left, but you don't have to look too far off to the west out towards Buffalo and Jamestown to see the leading edge of our next storm. And if we zoom out a little further, you can see there's quite a bit of snow, sleet, and rain going on now for the Great Lakes, with snow up through Wisconsin. This batch of some very heavy icing now right around Chicago, and rain south of that. As this storm tends to push eastward through the night tonight, again, not enough warm air is going to come in by the time it starts to see any changeover to any rain, at least initially. And in fact, off to the west, weather scan showing these pinks and purples here indicating winter storm warnings and ice storm warnings, in effect right now. So closer to our neck of the woods, again, we're dry coming up early tonight, midnight through 4 a.m. likely dry, but watch what happens between 4 and 7. This precipitation kind of explodes across the region with initially a little mix of some sleet and snow around Albany. At 7 o'clock, we'll see some sleet and freezing rain south down to around Kingston or so, and then south of that, likely warm enough for all rain, with all snow to start up across the Adirondacks. And watch through noontime, 1 o'clock. Very little change in this overall setup as to where the snow versus ice versus rain will be. These exact lines here, not set in stone. They could shift a little further south or a little further north, but keep in mind that this pink region here indicates some very heavy ice that will be going on even through 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, with that snow continuing in the North Country. Now, late in the afternoon through 5, 6 o'clock, we may get just enough warm air in here from Albany on south to see a changeover to some rain. But the North Country still in the ice, and even north of that up towards the high peaks of the Adirondacks still in the snow. The storm system pulls out tomorrow night, but not before we have a real mess on our hands. In fact, a headache of 1/4 of an inch to perhaps a 1/2 an inch or more of ice likely to fall coming up through the Mohawk Valley, through the Capital Region, into the Berkshires, southern Bennington County, and up towards Saratoga. So major icing there, with up to 1/4 of an inch of ice likely across the Catskills, down through the Mid-Hudson Valley. Less ice there because a changeover to rain will happen a little quicker. This ice could be sleet, could be freezing rain. At this point, it's very hard to know which one it will be. And the difference between the two with this storm in particular will be a big one. In fact, if all or mostly freezing rain falls, we're talking about a glaze of ice up to a 1/2 an inch thick on tree limbs and power lines, which could lead to some widespread power outages. In fact, in the rural areas, some of those power outages, if this scenario plays out, could last for a couple of days. If it tends to more sleet as opposed to more freezing rain, it's still going to be tough on the roads tomorrow, but few, if any, power outages will happen. So at this point, I advise you to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. It's not going to be until the precip starts tomorrow that we'll be able to get a better handle on exactly who will get the freezing rain and who will get the sleet. But again, it is possible here in Albany we could be dealing with quite a bit. Snowfall, more of a concern for the far north country, northern Rutland County, northern Washington County, and northern Warren County. 5 inches, maybe as much as 10 inches of snow. Lesser amounts as they travel further south, with no more than about a coating or so of snow from the Mohawk Valley into the Capital Region. These two are a little bit fluid, if you will, because if we get a little more mixing going on, a little more sleet, even just a couple more hours than I'm thinking right now, that could seriously undercut these snowfall totals. So that too is something we'll have to watch through the day. Forecast behind the storm is much cooler. In fact, highs only in the teens and 20s for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Overnight lows where it snows will be below 0, Craig. Low single digits for the rest of the region, and not much better as we head into next weekend. This looks like real winter, and of course Tom is in starting at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Keep you up to date on the forecast.
Thanks, Mike. Well, a man who risked his life for a stranger in the New York subway is coming to the state capitol to be recognized. Wesley Autry is already known as the subway hero ever since he jumped on top of a man who had fallen onto the subway rails. Autry kept the man and himself as close as possible to the ground as the train rushed past, just inches above them. Autry's coming to Albany Tuesday to be honored before the Assembly, and later he'll meet the governor. And Tuesday is also the start of Schenectady's 2nd annual Restaurant Week. If you're in the mood to shell out for a big meal, you might want to head over there. Some of the city's restaurants will offer 3-course meals for a fixed price of $19.62. 1962 is the year the city's Stockade section became the state's first legally protected historic district. Restaurant Week runs from Tuesday through Saturday. There's a long road ahead for 2 boys found inside a man's home in Missouri. When we come back, the man's neighbors describe sounds they heard coming from his apartment. Plus, the young man who's 3rd in line for the throne in Britain may be one of the soldiers going to war soon. Those stories and more straight ahead. Stay with us.
You're watching the news on CBS 6.
It was shut down in July after part of the ceiling fell down. But today, traffic began flowing through this connector tunnel in Boston, part of the city's Big Dig project. The partial collapse killed a woman who was riding through the tunnel with her husband. Extensive repairs were ordered to improve the support of the concrete ceiling. The family of the Missouri man accused of kidnapping 2 boys issued a statement today saying they're happy the boys are safe and they're hoping for the best for their son, 41-year-old Michael Devlin. One of the boys was missing 4 years. And neighbors who know Devlin say they never suspected, but they say some of the things they heard next door now make sense.
They were making bangings at 1:30 and 4:30 in the morning. Bang, bang. Those bangings may have been a cry for help. You know, somebody come get me out of here.
Devlin is locked up tonight. The boys' families have spoken to reporters, but so far, investigators have made sure the boys make no comments. The Pentagon's been looking at the financial records of hundreds of people who are said to be terror suspects. Vice President Dick Cheney says it's not violating anyone's rights. He says it's a safety measure to keep the nation safe and perfectly legitimate under the Patriot Act. Requests for the information are made under the authority of the National Security Letter statutes. A British newspaper suggests Prince Harry may be preparing for battle. According to a story in the News of the World, Harry is supposed to start military training this week, and his regiment could be deployed to Iraq in April. Associated Press report has a Defense Ministry spokesman saying it's possible only part of Prince Harry's regiment will be deployed if it's selected at all. Now, here's a discovery that could help researchers come up with a treatment for Alzheimer's disease. Scientists identified a gene they believe increases the risk of developing a common form of the disease. Researchers analyzed DNA from more than 6,000 people during an international study. They say more studies are needed to confirm their findings. Coming up, the Siena Saints looking for 2 in a row, the Bears and Seahawks working overtime, and the New England Patriots getting the lucky bounces in San Diego. Tim Mack has all the action next in sports.
That is it for a busy Sunday night in sports. Craig, we will send it on back over to you.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. Let's check in over with Mike again. He's looking at the weather, and it looks like it could be a nasty one in the morning, eh, Mike?
That's right, Craig. Between 4 and 7 o'clock tomorrow morning is when we'll see the mixture of snow, sleet, and freezing rain initially develop. It'll tend to transition south of Albany over to some rain by the afternoon, but this zone here in purple indicating where we could get anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of ice developing, either sleet, freezing rain, or mixture of the two. That includes the Mohawk Valley, Albany, Saratoga, Berkshires, and southern Bennington County. If we get 1/2 an inch of freezing rain, which is possible, we'll be in trouble so far as power outages are concerned. All of that ice on the tree limbs and power lines will mean some widespread power outages possible if that freezing rain develops. That's a little up in the air, and Tom Maley will have more on that for you coming up through the morning tomorrow. Snowfall, not much of a concern around here, but as you head further north, especially up into Rutland County and the high peaks of the Adirondacks, anywhere from 5 to 10 inches of snow possible. And it looks like up there, we won't be talking about much in the way of ice. Craig.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for staying up with us late tonight. Have a good night and watch out for the ice in the morning. We'll see you later.